This video will demonstrate how to perform the limiting reactant experiment with baking soda and vinegar. First, you'll pipette the given amount of vinegar into the Erlenmeyer flask. To do so, you'll be using a volumetric pipette with a pipette bulb. Your goal is to get the bottom of the meniscus to line up exactly with the calibration line. Allow the vinegar to gravity drain into the Erlenmeyer flask. After the pipette is done draining, a small amount of liquid will remain in the tip of the pipette. You need to record the mass of the flask containing the vinegar. Remember to record all decimal places on the balance. The mass here is 50.619 grams. You'll be using weigh paper to weigh out the baking soda. To prepare the weigh paper, fold it into a triangle and then fold it again into another triangle. When you unfold the weigh paper, you'll have creases that will make it easier to contain the baking soda. When you're ready to weigh the baking soda, put the weigh paper on the balance, press the tare button. Now you can add the baking soda directly onto the weigh paper until you get the desired amount. Remember to record all decimal places on the balance. The final mass here is 1.007 grams. Use a powder funnel in order to get the baking soda into the balloon. Stretch the balloon so that it will fit over the neck of the funnel. With the funnel in place, you can now pour the baking soda through the funnel and into the balloon along the crease in the weigh paper. Be sure you get as much of the baking soda as possible into the balloon. Next, very carefully stretch the balloon so that it fits over the top of the Erlenmeyer flask. Be very careful not to tip over the Erlenmeyer flask while you do this. When you're ready, lift the balloon to release the baking soda into the Erlenmeyer flask. Tap the balloon a few times to make sure you get all the baking soda into the flask. Swirl the flask on occasion to ensure complete reaction between the baking soda and the vinegar. When you're sure the reaction is complete and there's no further bubbling observed, remove the balloon and you'll reweigh the flask. The mass of the flask is 51.285 grams. In this laboratory, you'll actually be performing this experiment 7 times. Each time you'll have the same amount of vinegar, but you'll have increasing amounts of baking soda. You'll be able to observe the relative amount of carbon dioxide gas produced. All of the flasks contain the same amount of vinegar, but the amount of baking soda increases from 0.1 grams all the way up to 1.5 grams. In the first 4 balloons, the amount of carbon dioxide gas produced seems to increase with the increasing amount of baking soda. This indicates that the baking soda was limiting the amount of carbon dioxide gas that could be produced. The last 3 balloons, however, seem to contain approximately the same amount of carbon dioxide gas. So even though the amount of baking soda was increasing here, the amount of gas produced remained the same. So while initially the amount of carbon dioxide gas produced was limited by the amount of baking soda present, in the last 3 balloons, the amount of gas produced was limited by the amount of vinegar. One of the goals of this experiment is to determine the mass of baking soda where the reaction shifts from being limited by the amount of baking soda to being limited by the amount of vinegar.